Actions Protecting Consumers from Emerging Scams webinar. My name is Nelson Santiago, and I'm a Community Outreach Manager with Consumer Action. I'm thrilled that you are able to join us today for this important and timely, always timely topic, but especially this week when we are recognizing National Consumer Protection Week 2026. My colleague Yaje Mu is also joining us today. She is Consumer Action's newest Community Outreach Manager, and we're so glad to introduce her to you today. You'll hear from Yaje a little bit later when she facilitates the question and answer session. So welcome, Yaje. Before we move into today's program, I do want to take a moment to thank our webinar sponsor. Consumer Action is able to present this webinar thanks to a grant, a consumer education grant from Amazon. We are so thankful to Amazon for support over many years, support of our educational efforts. And today we are fortunate to be joined by Kasia Witkowski. She's Amazon's Senior Manager of Public Policy, who will say a few words to welcome you. Are you there, Kasia?
I am. Thank you. Hello and welcome, everyone. As Nelson mentioned, I'm Kasia Witkowski from the Public Policy team at Amazon. I want to thank you for joining us for National Consumer Protection Week. It's a time to reflect on the work being done across industries to keep consumers safe, informed, and empowered. Amazon is honored to once again sponsor Consumer Action's NCPW webinar. At Amazon, our goal is to be Earth's most customer-centric company. That means more than just delivering great products and services. It means ensuring that every interaction a customer has with us is one they can trust. Consumer protection is a core commitment backed by significant investment and the work of thousands of dedicated people around the world. As you know, scammers today are sophisticated, using emails, phone calls, texts, and social media to impersonate trusted brands like Amazon and manipulate victims. The scale to this problem is staggering. We believe that an informed consumer is a protected consumer, so we regularly publish scam alerts, partner with organizations like AARP Fraud Watch Network and the Global Cyber Alliance, and we make it easy for customers to report suspicious activity at amazon.com/report-a-scam in 28 languages. Amazon is fighting back on multiple fronts. In 2024 alone, we initiated takedowns of more than 55,000 phishing websites and 12,000 phone numbers used to impersonate Amazon. We can also take down a reported phishing site in just a few hours. But because scams are a cross-industry challenge, we don't work alone. We work closely with groups like Consumer Action to promote scam prevention education. We also are a signatory on the UK Online Fraud Charter, and we've hosted the GASA Americas Summit here at HQ2 in 2024 and 2025. It's partnerships like these that make our work stronger and more effective. Protecting consumers is a responsibility Amazon takes seriously every day, not just this week. So thank you, and I look forward to today's conversation.
Thank you so much, Kasia, for those words, and thank you to Amazon for the commitment to educating consumers about fraud. Next, I want to take a moment to invite anyone who might be new to Consumer Action to visit our website when you have a moment. We have a large library of multilingual materials on all kinds of consumer education topics, financial education topics that go from basic banking to savings to investing to housing, and of course, consumer scams. We have a module, an educational module called Just Say No to Scams that you can find on our website. In fact, on the lower right, you can see the training modules link that can take you to several of our educational modules, essentially curriculum that you can use to educate your community. So please visit the site when you have a chance. Now let me tell you about today's speakers. We're very lucky to have with us, and I kind of want to say that he's the reason we're here. He's part of the Federal Trade Commission, Andrew Rayo. He and the FTC, of course, is leading the National Consumer Protection Week. Andrew is Chief of Staff and Consumer Education Specialist in the Federal Trade Commission's Division of Consumer and Business Education. Andrew has been with the division for nearly 4 years. He uses plain language to educate consumers across the nation about their rights. In addition to his outreach efforts, Andrew manages the printing and distribution of the FTC's print publications, and he oversees the translation of case materials into languages other than English. After we hear from Andrew, we are going to hear from Mel Lanning. Mel Lanning is the executive director. She's the executive director of the BBB Institute for Marketplace Trust. And the Institute, by the way, is the educational foundation of the International Association of Better Business Bureaus. Mel is the BBB Institute's primary spokesperson and the co-author of several research reports, including the BBB Scam Tracker Risk Report. Under her leadership, BBB Institute launched a new and improved BBB Scam Tracker. How can you improve that, Mel? I love the Scam Tracker. This is the organization's prevention and reporting platform, so I'm sure it's amazing now. In 2024, BBB Scam Tracker helped people avoid losing an estimated $43 billion. In addition, the BBB Institute also recently introduced its Military and Veterans Initiative. I can't wait to learn more, and thank you, Nell, for being here. After Mel's presentation, we're going to hear from Ally Armeson. She's the executive director of FightCybercrime.org. Ally leads national initiatives that help individuals and communities recognize, report, and recover from cybercrime. For the past 4 years, Ally and her team have worked directly with high-loss victims of online fraud. Every day, the Fight Cybercrime team helps victims rebuild their emotional, financial, and digital lives after devastating crimes. Ally and FightCybercrime.org are committed to fighting for cybercrime victims and ensuring that they get the help they deserve. Thank you so much, Ally, for being here. We look forward to hearing your presentation. A couple of housekeeping items before I turn it over to Andrew. I want to let everyone know that the webinar is being recorded. It will be eventually be uploaded to our YouTube page, but everyone who's here now will get a link to the recording in about a week, as well as a PDF copy of the slide deck. The idea is that we want you to use this information. If you're doing trainings, if you're doing counseling, we want you to have the information so that you can educate your community. AFC professionals who are here live today will also get the code you need to get the continuing education units in about a week. And also don't forget that my colleague Yajie Mu is standing by for your questions. So please use the question function and submit your questions to Yajie, and she will present them to our speakers at the end. And finally, before you leave today, just stand by. We're gonna have questions for you as well, just so we can get a little bit of feedback from you about the webinar. So Andrew, if you are there, I'd love to turn it over to you, and just let me know as you need these slides advanced.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nelson, and hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Rayo, and I really appreciate that introduction. I am a consumer education specialist with the Federal Trade Commission. So before I talk a little bit about the FTC, I just want to say thank you to Consumer Action for having me today to talk about how to avoid, report, and recover from scams. As Nelson has already mentioned, I really hope that you share this information during the rest of this National Consumer Protection Week and all throughout the year with people that you know. Next slide, please. So before we begin, I'm going to talk a little bit about the FTC as a whole. Next slide, please. We are the nation's consumer protection agency. So the FTC works to stop fraud, deception, and unfair business practices. And we do that in several ways. One is by enforcing the law. We also do investigations and sue companies and people that break the law, and ultimately work to get money back to people whenever possible. We also do education and outreach. We do that in print, online, and in person, or like today, virtually. We work to tell people about their rights and businesses about their responsibilities. And a big part of our outreach is working with a wide range of partners, and that includes everyone here today, everyone listening, to help get our consumer protection messages out to people who can use them. So thank you all in advance for partnering with us by just taking what you hear today and passing it on to help fight fraud in your communities. Next slide, please. So I'm going to show you an overview of what we'll talk about today. beginning with the recent FTC data that we have on the top scams that people reported to us last year, with a quick caveat that we're still waiting on our final results for all of 2025, but we will be going over the first 3 quarters of 2025. After that, I'm going to talk about strategies and advice to help you avoid the scams that people reported the most, how to report them, and steps that could help you recover if you do experience a scam, or if you know someone who experiences a scam. And then towards the end, I will share with you some free resources from the FTC to help yourself and others in your community know how to recognize and avoid these scams. Next slide, please. All right, so as I mentioned, every year the FTC uses reports from people across the country, primarily to bolster its law enforcement efforts. And we do that, we compile our annual data book that we call the FTC Data Book. What these reports that we get from folks, they serve another purpose. They help us to answer some important questions about scammers and their tactics, such as how are scammers trying to get your money or information? What are they saying? How are they reaching out to you? These all help give us valuable information that helps us spread awareness to the public and do our outreach education. Next slide, please. Now, I mentioned that the 2025 data book is not yet out in full, but we do have data for the first 3 quarters, and that spans January 1st through September 30th. So that's what we'll be working with here today. In the first 3 quarters of 2025, the FTC took in 2.4 million fraud reports with losses at $12.3 billion. And those numbers are close to the numbers that we saw in 2024 from the full year. Those numbers in 2024 were 2.6 million fraud reports and $12.5 billion in losses. So with all of that said, it would seem the trend seems to be that both fraud and losses to fraud are going to be increasing. Next slide, please. The 5 most reported frauds from Q1 through Q3 of 2025 were the same as the top reports of 2024, though they did come out in a slightly different order from 2024. That said, the top scam type reported was still imposter scams. And I'll give a high-level view of what these all look like, beginning with imposter scams. That's when someone pretends to be somebody that they're not, like a family member or a love interest, say the government or a business, or another well-known organization. In the past few years, there has been a big increase in reports of people losing big money, sometimes more than $100,000 or entire life savings. We'll talk more about those scams in a bit. Next up, online shopping scams were at number 2, and often involve people not getting what they ordered or being billed for something that they didn't order. And internet services sit in the middle at number 3. Business and job opportunities came in 4th, and these usually involved job scams and scams around employment agencies. Investment scams round out the list, and this is where we saw heavy losses. Nearly 80% of people who reported an investment-related scam lost money, with a median loss of $10,000. And now let's talk about some of those top frauds in a bit more detail. Next slide, please. Let's start with number 1, the number 1 most reported fraud, imposters. And there's so many different stories that scammers like to tell. Sometimes there are even multiple threads in the same scam that scammers employ to keep you really confused. As I mentioned earlier, there has been a steady increase in these scammers, sometimes more than $100,000 that scammers are taking from people. And these high loss scams typically start with a fake story that gets your attention, with one or a combination of several lies. Imposter scams can start in a variety of ways, and right now we're seeing a scam that starts with someone who contacts you and says they're from a company you know or from your bank. They tell you there's a problem with your account and that they'll transfer you to someone who can supposedly help you. That person claims to be a government official. Sometimes they say they work for our agency, the FTC, but they're not. It's all a scam, and you know this is a scam because they'll tell you to move your money from your bank or investment or retirement account to supposedly protect it, and they'll tell you how to move it, but no one from the government will ever tell you to do that. Next slide, please. So I just talked about imposters broadly, including that complex hybrid scam that are a mix of both business and government imposters. But now I'd like to take a deeper dive into government imposters as a standalone scam. First, these scams are growing, but that's only part of the story. They are also shifting. In 2025, the most reported government imposter scam wasn't a federal agency, it was toll scammers. You've probably seen these text messages, and I myself have received them. They say you owe money for unpaid tolls and you need to pay immediately. And the scammy text message might even show a dollar amount for how much you supposedly owe and conveniently send a link that takes you to a page to enter your bank or credit card info. But all of it is a phishing scam. Because not only is the scammer trying to steal your money, but if you click the link, they could trick you into giving your personal information, like your driver's license number, and even steal your identity. So if you get a text like this, don't click any links. If you think it could be legitimate, reach out to the state's tolling agency at a number that you know to be true. And if it turns out to be spam, delete the text and block the number. Next slide, please. The fourth top reported fraud was business and job opportunity scams, and that includes job scams and fake employment agencies. In 2024, there were 126,000 reports and $751 million in losses. And now looking at the first 3 quarters of 2025, the numbers did in fact keep climbing, with 131,000 reports and $752 million in losses. I'll give an example of a job scam that we're seeing. That's one where a scammer poses as a recruiter for a well-known company. They call or text and they say they have a remote job that they'd like to offer you, and they're ready to set up an interview. They move fast. Before the interview, they might send some official-looking paperwork and ask for personal and financial information, but there's no real job, and the recruiter is really a scammer. To avoid these scams, make sure that you're researching the recruiter before you give any information. Do a search online for the name of the company or the name of the person, plus words like scams or complaint. And pay attention to how they communicate with you. Are the emails coming from a personal email address? That's a sign of a scam. Legitimate recruiters will generally email from a corporate email account. And if they ask for personal information like your SSN or your bank account before they even hire you, walk away. Next slide, please. Investment scams were the 5th most reported scam in the first 3 quarters of 2025. They're important to highlight because they continue to have big losses. People reported losing $6.1 billion, which is up from $5.7 billion in 2024. The majority, nearly 80% of people who reported an investment-related scam lost money with a median loss of $10,000. And investment scams can look so different. They can look, there's a variety of investment scams out there. Recently, we've been hearing more about affinity fraud, and that's where scammers are or pretend to be part of a group to gain your trust. It can happen online, through social media, or in person. To get you to invest, they'll promise high returns with little to no risk and lie about how much money others have already made investing with them in, say, Forex trading, stocks, cryptocurrency, or something else. After you invest, they'll often tell you your investments are doing well and make you think that you're, in fact, making money. But the reality is the investment isn't real, or it's extremely high risk, and you end up losing all of your money. To avoid an investment scam, check out ftc.gov/investment scams. Next slide, please. Now we'll talk about how scammers are reaching people, or how we're seeing that scammers are reaching people. We're seeing that text messages were the #1 method reported in the first 3 quarters of 2025. Scammers use text for many of the scams we've discussed. They text as government imposters, again, sending fake toll invoices, business imposters, sending fake delivery notices or fake fraud alerts, job scams, recruiting for fake jobs, as we've mentioned, and investment scams, and promising sky-high returns. But that said, the highest losses overall were to scams that started on social media, to the tune of $1.7 billion lost. And the highest reported losses per person were to scams that started on the phone, with a median loss of more than $1,800. Next slide, please. In the first 3 quarters of 2025, people reported losing $1.9 billion to scammers using bank transfer payments. But people also reported paying scammers with cryptocurrency and payment apps. Those were the top 3 payment methods people used when they lost money to scams. Next slide, please. So now that we have some background on the top scams that we're seeing from reports and how scammers are trying to reach you and ask you to pay, let's talk about 4 signs of a scam to help you avoid them. Next slide, please. Spotting a scam is the first step in avoiding a scam, but they're not always easy to recognize. There are so many different stories that scammers will tell. And sometimes, again, as we've mentioned, there are multiple threads that are intentionally trying to keep you confused. It could go something like this. Again, a scammer calling, pretending to be Amazon, or say they connect you, or after they've claimed that they're Amazon, they try to connect you to someone else who says they can move your money to protect it. And then that person that's helping, quote unquote helping, claims to work for the federal government, sometimes the FTC, but they're just a scammer trying to steal your money. So how can you avoid a scam like this? Never move or transfer your money to protect it. Your money is fine where it is, no matter what they say or how urgently they say it. Moving it means that you're going to lose it, not have it protected. Someone who says you have to move your money to protect it is a scammer, period. If you're concerned something really has happened to your account, contact the company at a phone number you know to be true, but don't use the number that you were contacted from. Next slide, please. Scammers will say just about anything to get your attention. They'll say there's a problem, like you missed jury duty and need to pay, or there's a prize, like you won a contest and have to pay. Let's dive more into the prize example. Scammers often use names that sound like well-known sweepstakes or companies, like Publishers Clearinghouse, to trick you into trusting them. So you might get a call or text from someone who says they're with Publishers Clearinghouse and you've won thousands or even millions of dollars, a car, a fancy watch, or say all 3. But you don't remember entering a contest. And yet free stuff sounds good. But if you reply, they'll say that you need to pay to get the prize, maybe for processing fees or taxes. No matter what they say, real sweepstakes have free prizes. Any money you send is going to a scammer's pocket. And sorry, there's no actual prize. The scammer stories change, but here's what won't. If you have to pay to get your prize, it's a scam. Real prizes are free. So if someone tells you to pay a fee for taxes, shipping and handling charges, processing fees, or customs duties to get your prize, you're dealing with a scammer. Next slide, please. So we talked about how scammers will come up with all sorts of stories to get your money or personal information. And one way they try to do that is by rushing you to keep you from thinking about what they're saying or asking for. When the scammer who says they're with Amazon calls you saying they're detecting fraud in your account or your money isn't safe, it's urgent. And with that Publishers Clearinghouse prize, they will say it's a limited time offer. If you don't pay quickly, they'll give the prize to someone else. Scammers tell you all of these things to try to get you to panic. So what should you do if you're being rushed? Stop. Check it out. Before you send money to anyone, call the person, the government agency, or someone else you trust and get the real story. Then decide what to do. Talking about scams is one of the best ways to avoid them. Next slide, please. Lastly, scammers want your money and they want it fast, but they want it in specific ways. They often insist you can only pay by using cryptocurrency, wiring money through a company like MoneyGram or Western Union, using a payment app, or putting money on a gift card and then giving them the numbers on the back of the card. What do all of these methods have in common? They're all like hard cash. They're hard to trace, and it's hard for you to get your money back. If anyone ever says you have to wire money, send money by payment app, or pay them with a gift card or cryptocurrency, that is a scam. No matter who they say they are or how urgent it seems, stop, get off the phone and talk to someone, and then report it to the FTC, which we'll get to in a bit. Next slide, please. So we've talked a lot about how to avoid scams, but I do want to also mention adding the blocking unwanted calls and text as a way to help reduce the amount of scam calls that you get. If scammers can't reach you, then they don't have the chance to try to get your money or your personal information. So for more information about using call blocking or text blocking devices, go to ftc.gov/calls. Next slide, please. No matter what you do to avoid scams, you're likely going to spot them. And when you do, we hope you'll report them to the FTC. And now we're going to talk about how to do that. Next slide, please. If you see a scam, even if you don't engage with a scammer, we hope you'll consider telling the FTC by going to reportfraud.ftc.gov, or in Spanish at reportefraude.ftc.gov. This piece is really important in the fight against scams because scammers don't just scam one person. So if you experience a fraud, a scam, or any bad business practice, help your community, help protect your friends, your family by reporting it to the FTC. Every time you file a report with the agency, you give a piece of the puzzle that helps build cases, stop scammers, and alert others about scams. Next slide, please. And this is what reportfraud.ftc.gov looks like. When you follow a few short steps, your report is instantly available to more than 2,000 federal, state, and local law enforcers across the country. It goes into the database that gives us a look at what's happening with fraud. That's all the data that I shared earlier at the beginning of the presentation. And once you tell the agency what happened, you'll get advice on how to help you recover and how to guard against fraud in the future. Next slide, please. Scammers can be very convincing, as we've already established. They're really good at what they do. So we're going to talk a little bit about what to do if you paid someone you think is a scammer or gave them your personal information. You might not be able to get your money back, but we'll talk about a few things you can do moving forward. Next slide, please. So sometimes, no matter how careful we are, we do in fact end up paying a scammer. And if that happens, the most important thing to do is to act quickly. Start by contacting the company that you used to send the money. Tell them it was fraud and you want their help to get your money back. If you act as soon as you realize you paid a scammer, and depending on how you paid, you might be able to recover at least some of your money. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes scammers are focused on getting your personal information. Depending on what happens after that, there are different steps to take. If someone has used your information, say to open a credit card, you'll want to report it immediately by going to identitytheft.gov. There you'll get a personalized step-by-step recovery plan. If you shared your information with the scammer and you don't think your information has yet been used by someone else, there are other steps to take. You'll want to check to see if anyone has used your information and then freeze it to make it harder for anyone to use it in the future. And lastly, continue to monitor your credit. So by placing a credit freeze, it can help you from having your information used to, say, open a new credit card, open a new phone line, and so on. And again, in terms of monitoring your credit, you're going to want to keep checking your credit reports periodically by going to annualcreditreport.com to watch for anything that you don't recognize. And you can get your reports online every week for free. Next slide, please. Lastly, I want to talk about some free tools to help you talk about scams and how to avoid them. Next slide, please. So if after today's session, you'd like to share information on avoiding, reporting, and recovering from scams with your family and friends, I invite you to check out our website, ftc.gov/bulk order, where you can order free publications. This includes all of the resources you see here on the screen and so many more. You can order as many copies as you'd like. It's completely free. And we hope that you'll share these around your community, say at a library, or community center, a club, anywhere that your community gathers. And I handle our print distribution, so you'll have an opportunity to get my contact information. If you ever need to place an order, feel free to reach out to me directly. Next slide, please. Scams keep changing, so it's important to stay updated on the latest trends. You can get the latest trends sent right to your inbox by signing up for consumer alerts at ftc.gov/consumer alerts, or in Spanish at ftc.gov/alertas de consumidor. You'll get 2 to 3 emails a week with info and advice on the newest variation of the scams that we're seeing and what the FTC is doing about them, all in about 300 words or less. These alerts are easy to share by email or social media to help others stay in the know. And I believe at this point, next slide, please. That is all I have to share with you today, but my contact information is there, so feel free to reach out for any additional questions, or if you'd like any help with placing a publication order. With that said, I want to thank Consumer Action again and hand it back over to Nelson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. That was fantastic information. Stand by. We're going to bring you back for questions in a little while. Next, we want to invite Mel up to the virtual stage. Mel, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you. Let me know when to advance your slides. Thanks so much.
Cool. Yeah, Thank you so much for inviting Better Business Bureau to be here today. My name is Mel Lanning, and I am with the BBB Institute for Marketplace Trust. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Actually, the next slide one more. There we go. So many of you know about the Better Business Bureau. You all have one in your community. There are local Better Business Bureaus across the country. And our focus is really to build trust in the community. We help consumers find trustworthy businesses. And that's the big part of our mission. But unfortunately, as we all know, there are a lot of bad actors out there who reduce trust in the marketplace because of the scams that they're perpetrating. And so the BBB Institute for Marketplace Trust is the 501c3 educational foundation of the Better Business Bureau. We have a wide range of programs, but a big focus of what we do is around fraud prevention. And I'm going to share a little bit of our work today, but also a little bit about what we see in the data that we receive from the public as well about the scams that they're experiencing. So if we could go to the next slide. So thank you so much to Andrew. That was incredible information that the FTC provided. I'm going to give you some of this will be very similar to what he discussed, but we're giving you sort of a different snapshot, if you will. The way that our reporting tool is set up is we have a different taxonomy. So we kind of give you a little bit of a different perspective on some of the scams that we're seeing. And what I'm going to do is just do a deep dive on some of the scams that are being reported to BBB Scam Tracker, which is our reporting and prevention platform. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But we use that data to really identify key trends and also to understand which types of scams are having the biggest impact on the public. And I'm going to share with you some of those most impactful scams, if you will, today. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So just to start off, one of the ones we've seen grow over the last 3 years, I would tell you that this has been in our top 10 list of scams that we watch out for many years, but it's actually gone up in recent years. We're just seeing more and more of this for a variety of reasons. Part of it is cryptocurrency, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But as Andrew said, some of the red flags for investment scams are when people approach you and promise to help you make money with little or no risk, which we know any investment comes with risk. That's part of making an investment. And so that's a huge red flag. If somebody's telling you that they can make you a lot of money and there's no risk or little risk, then that's not true. And you should take a pause very quickly. Other things to be alert for, if they claim to be an expert, they've made a lot of money themselves, and they can show you how. Another thing that they do is everyone's doing it. You don't want to miss out. Again, it's part of that pressure they put on you. You want to make sure that you don't miss this deal. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You don't want to miss out. And that kind of is part of that pressure. So you got to act now. You got to do this quickly. That's part of the scheme, if you will. Reciprocity. Many of us have been invited to go to a fancy dinner or whatever to hear about an opportunity. That plays into some of the scams that happen at times when, basically they're making you feel indebted to them. We've just done this great dinner for you. We're going to get more of your attention to help you get involved in this investment opportunity. That can be a red flag as well. And then Bitcoin ATMs. If somebody's telling you to go to a Bitcoin ATM for any reason, that's a red flag. We're seeing a lot of those being used for fraud. So the reason that I mentioned the increase is because cryptocurrency is, when we look at our data, we're seeing that investment scams are about 50% of the time are involving cryptocurrency. And so this is where somebody tells you that they know how to make money on a crypto platform, and they're going to show you how to do this. And this is part of another scam type later on that I'm going to talk about. But when somebody starts to get you involved and you start putting money into a platform that they're guiding you to, be very, very careful of that, because what we find oftentimes is it's a fake platform, and you put a lot of money in there and you get up to a certain level of funding. You see the growth in your investment and it happens quickly, but then you get to a certain level and suddenly you're told that you have to pay taxes, or there's a reason why you can't get to your money. And that's when eventually you realize that this is actually a scam. So prevention tips to consider with this, and I'll have general sort of tips at the end that are sort of things that we can know just across all scam types. But for this one specifically, listen to your gut. If something feels off, just take a pause and talk to somebody, talk to a third party, talk to a friend, talk to a family member. Just take a pause and don't proceed. We found in our research that when people said that they stopped when they felt something was not quite right, that they were able to avoid losing money to a scam. So just listen to your gut. If something feels wrong, just take a pause and check it out. Practice saying no. A lot of us we don't want to be rude, and we don't want to do anything that might offend someone else, but in this situation, you have to be able to say no and walk away, or hang up the phone, or just whatever, end the engagement, however you do. So if you have family members that or just can't say no, or have a hard time being abrupt with folks, practice with them to say no to a situation like this. And don't be pressured. If somebody is trying to force you to do something in a time constraint, that's again another time when you just need to pause and say, I'm not going to do this right now. Nothing is so urgent that it has to happen right now. There are ways to verify with everything, and this is a common theme that I'll talk about today, is take time and verify the situation. And that's the truth with investment scams as well. FINRA has a great tool called Broker Check that you could go in. If they claim to be a broker, you can find out if they're legitimate or not. There's the SEC has a tool called Edgar. So there are ways to do some verification as well. And know about the fake platforms that I just mentioned, that they will look real, they will feel real, and just understand that there are these fake places that it's very easy to build these, and just because it looks real doesn't mean that it is. So just be aware of that. And so those are investment. In BBB we call them investment/crypto scams, because again, so many of the crypto scams we've seen come through are related to investments as well. So that's it on investment scams. And the only other thing I would add is, and this is a scam, it's a high dollar loss as well. So this is where we're seeing people lose significant amounts of money. And that's part of why I put it at number one. If you go to the next slide, please. Employment scams is another one that we continue to see growing. And that is something that we've seen ever since COVID. Back in 2020, we have seen employment scams continue to be in the top 3 scams that we're seeing in terms of the impact that they're having. They are particularly impactful for younger ages, obviously. Those are the ages that are really looking for jobs. However, what I would say on that is that they are impacting everyone. And we found that when we did our survey research that people who were, the folks who were not necessarily proactively looking for a job were actually in some cases more likely to lose money, because what was happening is they were getting these offers to make money on the side that were remote and easy to do. And so they were attracted to that. They weren't necessarily looking for a full-time job. They were looking for a side gig, if you will, which brings me to the red flags. So with any kind of job opportunity that you're seeing, if it feels too good to be true, and that's a common theme among all the general red flags that we see, remote work, great pay, they don't require any specific skills, so just about anyone could do the job, but you still get good pay, you can work from home. Any of those, those are red flags for a job scam. It just sounds too good to be true. I could do this at night, I could do it on the weekend, I could make a lot of extra money. On the spot job offers, it feels a little too easy to get this job. That's a red flag. Remote opportunities, reshipping jobs, secret shopping jobs, online task-based work. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute because that's a new trend that we're seeing. Payments for training or home office equipment. So they hire you for a remote job, and we found in our research that being able to work from home was the #1 reason people engaged with a job scam. So that's a huge perk for folks. And what happens with those is they'll say, we're going to, now that we've hired you, we're going to send you a check to your home address so that you can put it in a bank, and that we can buy you off home office equipment, or we can pay the trainer to do the training that you need to do to start this job. And what they do is the official looking check arrives in the mail. You're told very quickly, put it in the bank, and then transfer some of those funds to another account. And then that account will either, get you your equipment or set up your training or whatnot. What you don't realize is that's a fake check, and you've actually transferred real funds from your own account, because you don't realize quite yet that that check is not going to be accepted. At the end of the day, you'll have to pay that money back. That's a common scheme that we've seen for years when it comes to job scams. However, I will say that one thing to know about scams is they evolve constantly, the way they're being perpetrated. And one of the newer trends that we're seeing are these online task-based schemes where they hire you to do work online, whether it might be product reviews or whatever it is that you're going to do. And there's a commission base set up, and you have to do a certain amount of work. And eventually what happens is you're asked to put your own money in to this online account where you're supposed to get paid. And then eventually you realize, after you've put a certain amount of money in, because you're trying to get your wages or your commission, that you can't get your money back, that you've used your own money. So that's another way these are being perpetrated, unfortunately. Some prevention tips, and actually Andrew covered a lot of these when he talked, which is find the job listing on the company website. Go straight to that real website. Don't go to anything they're sending you. Don't go to the links that they're providing to you. Go do your own research. Find out if this is a real job or not. Know about the red flags. That's almost the most critical piece here, is know about these job scams. Share this with your family and your friends about these overpayment schemes, about the task-based schemes that they have. Be cautious about sharing any personal information. Andrew talked about one of those schemes, which is to collect some of your personal information on a job application. Be very careful and just check them out before you share any of that information. And if you're asked to provide upfront payments for anything for a new job, that's something that you should know about as well. Don't do that. It's a new job. They should be paying you. You shouldn't be paying them. So with that, I'm going to ask to go to the next slide. So online shopping scams, I will tell you that this is always in the top 4 of the most impactful scams we're seeing. It makes up every year about 30% of what's reported to BVB Scam Tracker. They're just everywhere. They're very, very common with the fake websites. And Andrew talked about social media, those fake ads that are popping up. So some of the red flags and the way that they're perpetrated, right, is you see that ad, you go to the website, you pay for this incredible product, and it never arrives, but you get charged for it. Or it can be, in some cases, counterfeit product, really, really low, cheap, knockoffs of a product that are not at all what you paid for. Red flags to just be aware of. Too good to be true. Again, this is a common theme, right? It's a great price. This is an incredible product that you whether it's a puppy that's really, really cute, or that incredible leather jacket that you're getting it's such a deal. It's a limited time offer. They tell you that, okay, that's going out of business sale, 24 hours to get your products in before they close. All of those are red flags. Hard to find products sometimes. We found during the pandemic that there are a lot of these happening with masks and cleaning supplies, because it was hard to get them. So of course the scammers were offering them online. Any unfamiliar websites or businesses that you've not purchased from before, those are things to just be very, very careful about. If you haven't gone and used that website before, check it out. So prevention tips: just be careful when you're online, period, but especially if you're on social media. Avoid making any quick purchases on something that looks like a great deal and you just really want to get in and get it before it's gone. Just take a pause, check it out. Remember that it's really easy to create these professional looking websites. It's really not that hard anymore. So even if the website looks great and it looks legit, that doesn't mean it is. And the way to research the website is to just find out how old the website is. You know, that's one of the big things is you can also search BBB Scam Tracker, and I'll talk about that a little bit to see if that URL has been reported or not. So online shopping scams, the one thing about them is you're not likely to lose a lot of money. The way scammers work here is that some scams, the ones I just talked to you about, employment and investment, they spend a lot more time with fewer people because they're basically going to make more money off each person. These are the ones where they're targeting lots of people, so they're not making as much money off each scam, but they're scamming a lot more people, and that's how they make their money. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Home improvement scams, that's another one we see that's always in our top 10 list. And this is when somebody stops by your house and has, you know, they've been just finished doing work down the street and they've got extra supplies and they can give you a good deal. Whether it's working on your porch, working on your roof, whatever it is, they'll find something that they think they can do for you and they're going to give you a deal. But you got to act now, and they need money up front. So they want you to act now. So red flags, it's a great deal. As I just said, you have to act now. They want some sort of upfront payment. And these happen a lot after natural disasters. They will show up knowing that it's really hard to find a contractor when everybody's looking for one because there's so much damage. And so that's when folks will show up and say, hey, I can help you out and I can give you a good deal. So some prevention tips, and just as a reminder, with bbb.org is Better Business Bureau's website. It's a great place to go find trustworthy contractors and businesses, especially locally. So go to bbb.org, verify their credentials, find out what their rating is, find out if they're accredited or not. Never pay up front for work that hasn't been done yet. Get a detailed contract, get multiple bids. Beware of those storm chasers that I mentioned, which are the folks that show up after a natural disaster. And do not agree to be pressured that you have to do this right now. I have to make a decision right now. Nobody has to make a decision right now. If they really are legitimate, they can go back later on or give you a number and you could call them and check them out first. So just don't be pressured to act quickly. So with that, if we can go to the next slide. Relationship scams, and this one I wanted to mention because this is there's a crossover between relationship scams and those investment scams a lot of times. So relationship scams are the ones that start online. Typically it can start with a text that somebody just got the wrong number and they start a conversation with you, or it can start with a direct message on social media where they want to start to engage with you and have a conversation, and they'll start this conversation with you. And what happens is it can go on for many days or weeks or months. These are the idea here is they're trying to build a relationship with you. They're trying to build trust with you, and they will do that before the person realizes that this is a scam. Before they even go to begin to perpetrate the scam, they will build that trust with you. Some red flags, it's always on video. They can't meet in person for some reason. They might be overseas or in the military. They may talk about soulmates, and not all of these are romance scams. Sometimes it's just a really good friend who's there for you. It doesn't have to be a romantic, but there is some sort of bond and there is a consistent engagement going on. In a lot of these traditional relationship romance scams, there's some sort of emergency, and by then you've built up this great relationship, and they need you to send them money. And that's how it's been happening for a long time. However, in the last 3 to 5 years, we're seeing much more where it's an investment opportunity. This is, again, this crossover of those crypto scams that I mentioned earlier, which is they just happen to thread it into the conversation. I've been able to make a lot of money off crypto. I can show you how. And then they pull you in and they get you into that same situation. So This is a scam, another scam type where people are losing significant amounts of money. In some cases, their whole retirement. It's really awful, and it's not just financially awful. It can be horrible for somebody's mental health as well, obviously, because this is somebody that they trusted. We've talked to scam survivors who will tell us later, this was the one person in my life who I knew was going to be there for me. And so when I found out they were a scammer, that was, not only did they lose significant amount of money, they lost this person they thought was their friend. So prevention tips, just know about these situations, know that sometimes these texts can come in and it may sound really innocent, but it may not be. And never send money to somebody that you've met online. You can do a reverse image search online to see if this person's legit or not, if they're using somebody else's photo. If they tell you to get off a certain platform, so you're on LinkedIn or you're on a dating site and they tell you, I want to go to WhatsApp, huge red flag. Just remember that that is not what they're trying to do, is get you away from any kind of protective services that might be on that platform. And never share private information with somebody that you really don't know very well. So that's a relationship scam. If we could go to the next slide. Phishing scams, and this is I think the last scam I'll dig in deep on. We've seen an increase in these over the years. Phishing scams are when they're sending you messages and they're really trying to get access to information, whether it's your personal information, your banking information. And so if they pretend to be, like Andrew had said earlier, they pretend to be somebody that you trust. It's an unexpected message. In some cases, it's a promise to act very quickly, and this is a good thing. Or in other cases, it's a fear tactic. You're back, you need to pay your taxes, or you have a ticket that's out, you have to do something very quickly. Red flags, there's a link or an attachment in there, and this is particularly disturbing if it's a text, because it's so easy to open a text and quickly click on that. Don't do that. Don't click on any links or attachments and unexpected messages. Generic greetings, and I will say that that's something that was very common in phishing before. That's not a foolproof red flag anymore because of AI, because AI has allowed scammers to increase the amount of phishing that they do, and they're more professional. So it's a little harder in some cases to detect some of these phishing scams. So I just urge you all to just, if you get an unexpected message, to just really go somewhere else and verify it before you follow up and click on anything. Prevention tips: never respond directly to any kind of unexpected message. Andrew mentioned this earlier. Go directly to the website of the company, the bank, whatever it is. Don't use any of the phone numbers or any of the links that that person provides. Don't click on any of the links, and don't share any personal information. So those are just some, I just wanted to do a deep dive on some of these most common scam types that we're seeing to give you some information on this. Before I transfer it over to Ally, just to talk a little bit about, I mentioned the romance scams and some of the financial grooming scams. And just wanted to mention that it's not just the financial impact, right? There's a very, folks who've gone through this are in recovery. We call them scam survivors. May experience a wide range of different impacts from the incident that they experienced. So it could be that obviously they lost time, they lost money, their mental health may be impacted at this point, their credit may have been hurt, they may not be able to pay their bills anymore, their personal information may have been stolen, so now they have to deal with the identity theft, which is a whole other range of moving forward and trying to figure out how to take care of that. There may be strained relationships. If you're you're a couple and you've lost a lot of money, that may put a strain on your relationship. And in some cases, their reputation may have been hurt. If we can go to the next slide. Emotional impacts, we do survey folks to find out how they felt about a scam incident. Anger is one of the top emotions that they tell us. Loss of trust is right up there. The other ones that are big: anxiety, stress, and trauma. These are situations, and I know Ally will talk about this, where it can be traumatic. And there's a lot of shame, and we need to do a better job of reducing the shame that people feel over this, because these are folks that stole their money and took advantage of them. And so we need to reduce the shame of having this happen to folks. So if we could go to the next slide. Just general red flags very quickly. Sounds too good to be true. They're pressuring you to act quickly. They tell you not to talk to other people about the situation. They ask you to move from one platform to another communications channel. Andrew mentioned this. They tell you to pay, how to pay, whether it's a gift card that they're telling you you need to pay with, or an online payment platform. If they're telling you exactly how you have to pay them, that's a red flag. They need access to your computer. They need to help you with something on your computer. Never give them access to your computer. Upfront payments for something you haven't received, or unsolicited messages. Beware of those unsolicited messages and just make sure that you are checking everything out and verifying it. So if we go to the next slide, please. So I think here just are some of the tools for the Better Business Bureau that we offer. And the way we look at this is the resources we provide before, during, and after a scam. So yeah, before is our scam prevention guide. And if we could go to the next slide, I'll go through each one of these real quick. So before, well, Scam Tracker is the platform where you're reporting. That is where we publish scam reports. We helped people avoid losing money, about $43 million in 2024 by coming here and searching the scams. So it's also a prevention platform. To go to the next slide. Prevention guide is also available at Scam Tracker. You can get quiz yourself. There's a risk calculator so you know which scams are more likely to target you based on your demographic profile. To go to the next slide. Scam Survival Toolkit. This is something that where you just basically go in after you've had experienced a scam incident. You answer a few questions about what happened, and it gives you a personalized next steps on what you need to do based on what happened. So you don't have to scan through tons and tons of content. It can reduce the stress and help you get on the right, and it includes mental health resources and everything, and talks about all of that as we said. So all of that, and it's trauma informed. So it's really meant to just reduce the amount of stress somebody's feeling at the moment when they realize, so they can get quick answers on what they need to do, where to report, on how to handle things. And if they are experiencing emotional, health issues, we provide them with resources on where to get help. And if you could go to the last slide. And with that, that's my LinkedIn profile. But you can also reach us at bbbmarketplacetrust.org. That's our website. I encourage you to go there. There's free research and all kinds of resources. And I encourage you to check it out there. And if you have any, I look forward to your questions. Thank you for having me to Consumer Action. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Mel. Ally, are you there?
I'm here.
Great, go ahead, please. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Nelson. Thank you, Consumer Action. Really appreciate being here today. Happy to be here with you all. Again, I'm Ally. I'm from fightcybercrime.org, and we help people who have been affected by severe online crimes like relationship scams, identity theft, investment fraud, all the things we've already heard about today. So we run a free support group for people who have had literally everything stolen from them during these severe online crimes. Andrew and Mel walked us through a lot of great information. Mel, thank you for that great segue too. I'm going to pick up where you left off. But we've covered what scams look like, which ones are affecting us the most, and how to prevent them from happening to you. But today, my role is to focus on what happens, unfortunately, after the online crime. Because sadly, for millions, as we've seen today, they've already been affected by online fraud. And then I'm going to discuss how community advocates can help when someone needs to recover after experiencing these major online crimes. So next slide. All right, so almost everyone who comes to us has had a significant amount of money stolen from them during an online crime. You can see here the median amount stolen from our participants in 2025 was $130,000. That is more than the US median household income. These frauds are not small disruptions. These are retirement accounts emptied. These are home equity lines drained. This is debt that has accumulated. And then after that fraud is over, there's often tax consequences, credit impacts, housing instability. Families are torn apart by this, by the stress, by the confusion, by the lack of control or help. Or family members are then targeted secondarily, right? Because of the information that was collected during the original fraud or online crime. Now their information is in the hands of criminals and they are affected by a severe online fraud. So recovery at this level is not a quick fix. And let's get into some of that on the next slide. And Mel did a great job about kind of covering how severe online fraud is a trauma, right? Survivors experience shame, self-blame, anxiety, depression. Sometimes they will isolate themselves or they will already have isolated themselves during the online crime. They will withdraw from society, from trusted institutions and technology, right? We often see individuals disengage. They are afraid to use digital systems at all. They're afraid to go back online. So being affected by severe online crime is a major, major life event that affects someone for years. And when you think about it, it's really easy to see why, right? Their entire life savings is gone, or a good portion of it is gone. They have to start over. Any future hope, any future plans, it's gone. All right, next slide. So something that I also want everyone to keep in mind is that the scam itself is just the beginning, right? In the news and the media, we hear about the scam itself, but we don't really hear about the aftermath. And unfortunately, this is the crime that just keeps taking. A severe scam event is going to create a vulnerability window that can last for days, months, or years, depending on the person and depending on what happened. So this vulnerability window is basically a period where the victim is still active in the financial system, in public, but operating under significant emotional and cognitive strain. So an example of this is when victims, right, out of panic, they will reach out to recovery services after an online crime. And these recovery services are almost always a scam. They say they can guarantee they can get your money back after this online crime. But again, the individual will have to pay up front in order to get these services. And again, it's just another scam. That criminal is stealing more money from them. We are also seeing victims hit with job scams. Again, makes sense. If you've lost your life savings, you have to go get a job. And unfortunately, because they are panicked out of their haste, they are getting affected by a follow-on fake job opportunity. So in our 2025 data, 43.9% of the people who came to us for help indicated they had interactions with 2 or more cybercriminals before they reached out to us to get help with recovery. An example, a story, we had one individual who, after having had $2 million stolen from her during a romance fraud, she engaged 6 recovery companies, again, who are just more scammers. And she unfortunately had another $100,000 stolen from her in an attempt to try and get her money back, right? And it's easy for us on the outside to say, oh my gosh, right? What were you thinking? 6, right? 6? But this is panicked decision-making, right? This is that emotional distress, and it impairs judgment. It causes you to panic. All she wanted to do was fix her life. The next thing I'm going to touch on in this slide is the shame that Mel had addressed earlier. Again, the shame often causes survivors to isolate. Individuals may not want to tell anyone. Oftentimes I'm talking one-on-one with an individual who's been affected and they say, I'm not telling a single soul other than you about this. And this shame, this isolation results in people not reaching out for help and results in people not reporting. And the final thing I'll touch on is that if a victim had money stolen from their retirement account during this online crime, this is going to trigger those tax penalties I mentioned earlier. So not only was money stolen from you, but now you get taxed on that money. And then if you are older and you're getting Social Security, or if you're on Medicare, your Social Security check is going to go down because the government's going to clock that as, hey, you had income, you pulled out of your retirement account. And your Medicare, those costs are going to go up. So again, there are severe repercussions after these crimes. All right, next slide. So what I want people to get, or what I'm going to get into now and what I want people to understand is what community helpers and advocates can do to assist people who are still trapped in the online crime. So we often assume that when we show someone facts, lots of proof, lots of pictures, that they're going to see, this is a criminal, I need to stop. I need to get out of this. I need to get help. But this just isn't the case when the person has been emotionally manipulated for months or for years. They're not going to leave because you spew some facts out at them for a few minutes. One of the toughest cases I've worked on involved a man who had been talking to an online criminal for 9 years. 9 years. And he finally came to us, and during our conversation, he still wasn't really sure that this was a fraud. He was so confused. He was so lonely. He was emotionally wrecked. The reality is he had probably been talking to many people, right? Many criminals along the way. But to him, this was the person he loved, who talked to him every day, sent him gifts, sent him money. It was the only person in his life. They were stealing money from him for 9 years, right? But he was in love and he didn't have anyone else in his life. So in a situation like that, 9 years of connection, of bond, breaking free isn't about facts. It's about emotional safety. It's giving them the space to sit in the situation and come to the realization with you by their side. Have you ever been in a passionate discussion with somebody and you both take like opposite views and you both really just disagree? Both of you are convinced you're right, it's black, it's white, right? And did peppering each other with facts change either of your minds, right? Did either of you relent in a few minutes and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for these facts. You're right, I've completely changed my mind. I'm betting no, that didn't happen because our brains are not wired that way. And this is the same type of thing. We have this thing called belief perseverance, and it's the tendency to cling more tightly to a belief after it's challenged, once it's tied to your emotions or your identity. So once someone has invested time, money, trust into anything, a human, an idea, contradictory facts don't loosen the belief. In fact, they strengthen it. So when we say, well, I told them it was a scam, I told them to get out of it, it's not going to work probably, and likely it didn't work. But that doesn't mean that the warning was pointless. It just means that the victim's brain was protecting itself. And that's really important to understand. Facts rarely overcome attachment. Matter-of-fact responses on the outside, though may be true, they can deepen resistance. So to wiggle someone free is a process. Disengagement is not a moment. One conversation ain't gonna do it. It's a process. So next slide. So what can we do to help someone who's still in it, who's still in this fraud, this online crime? First, take the pressure off yourself. Again, they didn't get into this in one conversation. They're not going to get out of it in one conversation. Stick to what's on the screen here. The main thing you're trying to do is slow it down, right? Slow down the moment, seek to understand. And when I say seek to understand, ask about their story, right? Ask questions, those open-ended questions. Anything to give you more information and make that person pause and listen to their story out loud, because sometimes they haven't said their story out loud yet. And they'll start to hear things and they'll say things like, this may sound crazy. Oh gosh, this sounds very dramatic. And you know that even though they may not be convinced in that moment, that is their brain starting to actually process. So if they say, I know this sounds crazy, right? Just go with it, right? Don't push. Listen and actually like agree neutrally, right? This does sound like a lot. This does sound stressful. Are you okay? Right? Just be a good human that's listening. That's all you have to do. Some other tips: acknowledge the emotional reality. Again, if they were in any type of relationship, if it was romantic, if it was a mentor, if it was an investor, a friend, it was a relationship. They were still manipulated by this person. So whatever that individual is feeling, it's legitimate. Avoid those blunt confrontations, right? This is a scam, stop, contact. It's just too abrupt. And we hit on that before. And then try and keep that door open, right? Things you can offer is, do you need help researching? Do you want to pick this conversation up later, tomorrow, next week, right? Set a date, but give them space to come back and give them room to change their mind when they've had time to think. And finally, if you do nothing else, just stop talking and listen. Try not to judge. I know that can be hard if this isn't the work you do every day, but the words you say, they're going to matter, and you need to choose them wisely because they can make a person feel shame or they can make them feel safe, and you want them to feel safe. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about language. And I need to change the slide. What I should be putting on there is what you should say, not what you shouldn't say. But if it's on the slide, don't say it, right? How did you fall for that? You lost how much? What, right? Why did you give them your money? They didn't lose their money, right? They didn't give it away. It was stolen. So I'll tell you just a real quick story. Last year, we helped a woman who was involved in a crypto investment fraud. Mel described this earlier. And basically, it was a fake crypto investment website. The person was like, oh, you're going to get great returns. She saw great returns as she was investing. It was all fake. However, the website looked very convincing, but she was essentially, transferring her crypto into a criminal's wallet. She sees these great returns though, and she's like, I have to get my family in this. I want them to have a wonderful future alongside me. So her whole family, adult children, her parents, everybody throws everything in, right? College funds, retirement funds, they take out loans. At the end of the day, the entire family lost $12 million. They had $12 million stolen from them. That poor woman came to us suicidal. And so what I want to go into is what we said to her, just to give you an idea. So we said, I am so sorry that this happened to you. This criminal stole your money. You were trying to create a good future for yourself, and that's all anyone ever wants. We want to be happy. We want security. We want our families to be happy. This is the criminal's fault, not yours. And it's happened to so many other people. You're not alone. We are here for you. We are here to help. We're going to get you the help you need today for your mental health, because that's the most important thing. And then when you're good, then we're going to take care of the rest. But let's get you okay. And then we sent her to all the resources that she needed, the people that she needed to get mentally healthy again, because her situation was so serious and so dire. And so if you remember nothing else, just remember to put yourself in their position, have an empathetic tone, be kind, right? Just be a good human, just be a good person. The main goal in this stage is to really just be there for them, to reduce the shame, take care of their mental health. This is so important because on the next slide, that shame that we keep talking about is a barrier to fraud disruption, right? When victims stay silent, these bad guys win. So when victims stop telling people what happened to them, they stop telling regulators, financial institutions, law enforcement, government agencies, platforms, what's happening. That limits our actionable intelligence. It weakens our fraud disruption. We are able to intervene fewer times. The warnings to the public are delayed. It reduces our ability to interrupt the scam ecosystem that's getting stronger by the day, especially with crypto and artificial intelligence. But when a victim engages in trauma-informed recovery, they're more likely to report, to seek help from legitimate and appropriate professionals, and share those critical details about how the fraud occurred. So reducing shame isn't therapeutic. Well, it isn't just therapeutic, it is therapeutic, but it's strategic. Recovery strengthens consumer protection. Recovery is prevention. Next slide, please. So let's move on and talk about what a community helper or advocate can do when they're speaking to someone who is no longer in the fraud. So the individual knows, okay, an online crime happened to me. I'm looking for next steps. So everything we said still applies, right? Use the language we covered, listen, validate their feelings. Where they're at is where they need to be, right, emotionally, but also try to hit on some of these priorities you see on this slide. This is a lot. It can be overwhelming. Don't just kind of dump this checklist at their feet. And some of these are self-explanatory, so I'm not going to really touch on all of them, but I do want to hit on that first one to kind of further explain and highlight that you can understand that it was a fraud, it was an online crime, it was a criminal, and you're done with sending the money, right? But you can still be in contact with that criminal. It can still be hard to stop speaking to them, especially if it was a relationship, right? It's going to take a while to stop communication. The big first step is to stop the transfers, the money transfers, and then work on the communication. But that's something that us on the outside need to understand. The money may have stopped moving, but the communication may continue, and it's going to take time. All right, the next thing I'll cover is reporting on the next slide, and I'm just going to kind of briefly cover this because Mel and Andrew did such a good job already. Also, there are so many places a person can report. If I had all of those places on the slide, it would be unreadable. So for the survivors we work with, we strongly encourage filing with ic3.gov as soon as you can. This is the FBI's reporting website. This is because in the few cases where people who have lost huge amounts of money or had huge amounts of money stolen from them, those who have received partial restitution, gotten some of their money back, an IC3 report was almost always part of that record. For severe financial crimes, especially those involving cryptocurrency, cross-border activity, that federal reporting pathway is huge. Local law enforcement, getting a report from them is also very critical because you can use that to take to your bank to prove identity theft if it's happened to you. That will be used as evidence that you are a victim of a crime. So that said, reporting is not either or. The FTC, the BBB, and other reporting systems are essential, right? We need that visibility, that trend visibility, consumer education, and strengthening overall fraud responses and ecosystems comes from that reporting. So please do report to the FTC and BBB as well. So the key message is report early, report in multiple places when appropriate, or when mentally able, right? Again, when you've been affected by a severe online crime, you relive it every time you report. So having to report to 10 agencies just may not be mentally doable for someone, depending on their state. So keep that in mind. But reporting strengthens enforcement, strengthens data, and it strengthens prevention. All right, next slide, please. So just putting this in here, again, community helpers and advocates don't need to deliver long-term recovery. That's what my organization is for. But you can build that bridge to long-term recovery by completing some of the tasks here with the individual that are on this slide. The two big ones I'll highlight are ensuring a victim goes to credible, real, legitimate resources and organizations. Again, do your research, make sure they aren't going to some imposter website or some follow-on recovery scam. And then if you can, provide a warm handoff, right? Take that person to that organization. That's going to encourage that survivor to contact them, to follow through. It's going to make them feel comfortable and again, build that bridge to long-term recovery. All right, next slide. I see the time, I'm hurrying. Okay, long-term recovery. This is what my organization does. Again, we have a peer support program that is counselor-led, covers everything on the slide for individuals who have been affected by severe crime. Our group is free, thanks to sponsors and donors. But the main thing I'll say about long-term recovery is that it's not about helping someone return to who they were. Their life has changed forever. That recovery can restore stability and confidence, and it can help them move forward with the new life they have now. Next slide, I'm going to get into what we're seeing with recovery efforts. So this is just some quick data. We've seen over 90% of participants avoid follow-on scams after completing structured recovery. That's a huge success, especially considering that number I gave you in the beginning, right? 43.9% have been affected by multiple. They go through a program, 90% avoid follow-on scams. Fraud awareness increases, shame decreases, re-victimization drops. So recovery is prevention. It's prevention for the online crime, number 2, number 3, number 4. And we are seeing success, and we hope to continue for as long as we can. Next slide. I'm bringing it home, Nelson, don't worry. All right, these are the key takeaways, right? Severe online crime is trauma. Shame reduces ability to fight back. Repeat targeting is unfortunately common. Tone and empathy matter more than facts. And recovery is prevention. When we stabilize victims, we reduce that future harm. We increase reporting. We strengthen fraud disruption. And all of that ultimately protects consumers. That's all I got. I gave us 10 minutes for questions. Yay!
Thank you, Ally. There was no need to rush. Everything you presented was so important. And fortunately, even if we go over a couple of minutes today, everything is going to be recorded and we will share it with everybody. So thank you so much for that great presentation, Ally. And I see your contact information is here. And again, folks will be getting these slides. We do now want to move into the question and answer segment. Yeah, Jay, we do have, let us know if we have questions, and if we need to go over 2 or 3 minutes because we've got too many questions or lots of questions, let's get through them as well. Thank you, Jay, there.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Nelson. Thank you to our panelists for the great presentation. I got a lot of thank you from the Q&A session. People appreciate your presentations. So let's move to the questions. The first question is blocking number. Someone said blocking number does not work because scammers keep calling in different numbers. Do you have any suggestions on this situation?
That's a great question. Can you hear me? My microphone working? Yes. So yeah, that's a great point. Scammers, of course, like we talked about earlier, are constantly trying to stay on top of the latest ways to basically get under your skin, get your information, get your money. Call blocking, there are a variety of different apps you can try. I know that the FTC doesn't necessarily and can't necessarily recommend one over another, but one thing that we do consistently advise is to check reviews. So even though one call blocking application may not necessarily work well for you or may have some issues, I would recommend just looking online and seeing what people are saying. Looking at what may be, the most up-to-date, latest way to try to block text messages. I know that your phone is also supposed to have a feature or function to be able to do the same. And again, I know that there's no one-size-fits-all solution, but hopefully it can at least help to reduce the number of texts that you're getting. So that's what I would advise.
Thank you, Andrew. And our next question is, someone asked, do you need to do a credit freeze with all 3 bureaus, or doing one-stop, or is there a one-stop credit, or one website to stop credit from being stolen?
That is a great question. Oh, sorry, Ally, did you want to take this one?
I was just going to say all 3, you got to do it, but take it away, Andrew. You got it.
No, I absolutely agree, Ally, and I feel like a credit freeze nerd. I actually really enjoy talking about credit freezes. Yes, you do want to go to all 3. So I'll just throw out a link, ftc.gov/credit. There are the contact information and websites for Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. And I'll just give a very quick anecdote to say that oftentimes when you need to have your credit checked, whoever you're going to will tell you, oh, yes, we're going to run a credit check through Experian. But sometimes they won't know. I'll use myself as a personal example. I went to open a new phone line. The person I spoke with said, yeah, we're running a credit check, but we don't know which one. But that meant that all I had to do was just go separately to all 3 credit bureaus, and I was able to lift my credit freezes instantly. And I was also able to replace those freezes instantly as soon as the phone company ran the credit check. So definitely do. We highly recommend just keeping credit freezes on if you don't need to have your credit run.
Thank you, Andrew, for the information. And then someone also asked, does it bring someone's FICO score down if they pull credit every month? Okay, I believe you see the answer. All our panelists shake their head. Okay, so also someone asked also about credit freeze. So is there an easy way to freeze minor's credit report? So she said they claim at this moment you have to do it by mail, involving personal information, and it seems like risky.
I wish there was. I don't know of an easier way. It's hard on purpose, again, to prevent fraud, so that it's this difficult process that you have to really mean it. if you want to freeze a minor's credit. But yeah, it is tedious. I did it for my children and it's a headache. But to my knowledge, I don't know if Mel or Andrew know if there's an easier process, but that's the only one I know of.
I concur. I'm not aware of anything easier, fortunately and unfortunately. But I'll just piggyback to say that, you know, I think of the advice we give with, like, you know, doing multi-factor authentication for your accounts. The way that this overlaps is it can be an inconvenience at first, but ultimately that inconvenience could be a blessing. It could save you from having serious issues if, you know, something were to happen, your information gets compromised.
Okay, thank you both. And then, like, you know, I have a question from the other side. Someone with a business asked, like, how can we build credit, build trust with our clients? Because, like, now everybody is worried about, like, being like scammed. Like, is there a way, like, for the business to build trust, like, with their clients, customers?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. I think for businesses, it's a challenge these days, right? Because, you know, they're impacted as well, right? A business can also get scammed, and that's another thing we didn't talk about at all today. But I think one of the things businesses can do, and many are, is just making sure that they're protecting their customers, that they're doing everything that they can to make sure that they're protecting the information they collect, and that they're and some are very proactive about how they're doing that, to be clear. And one other thing I'll just mention is, if you don't have to collect information, don't collect information, right? If you're a business and you can get away with not having to get, you know, to collect a license, you know, or something like that. Just being really careful. But I think being really upfront about what you're doing to protect people is the best way to build trust, right? It's just to share that and be upfront with how you're being proactive to protect your customers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mel. So the next question we have is, it's to you, Mel. Does BBB actually verify the integrity and quality of business and contractors? Because some people say, like, there are, like, the BBB bad reviews expires in 2 to 3 years, and then they'll only show the good reviews. Can you explain more about that?
Yeah, so the caveat is I'm not really involved with the review process myself, but what I will say is that there's a difference. One thing to know is there is a difference between just a normal business and an accredited business online. So when you go to the bbb.org and you find an accredited business, it'll have the seal. That business has been vetted, right? So we're a nonprofit organization. We vetted that. That's how they got that seal, is they have been vetted. There are ratings on all businesses, though, and those are based on complaints that are submitted by the public. All of those are put onto the website, onto the platform, so you can see them all. One thing to know about the way that we look at complaints is that there's always going to be some complaint with a business, right? So it's about how, if they actually address the complaint with the customer or not. That's one of the ways that we kind of look at it, right? And those local BBBs that do this, they work very closely with the business and the consumer to make sure that those are resolved. So if the complaint is resolved, then that will help their rating, right? But I don't believe the bad ones go away and the good ones stay. I don't think that's the case at all. But again, I'm not that close to the review process. So what I would just say to remember is, number one, accredited businesses, just remember that they have had extra vetting done. And number two, that the other thing just to remember too is that we do verify reviews and complaints. So we have a way to do that so that people are not just putting fake reviews and stuff. That's something BBB spent a lot of time on. So the ones that are submitted are legitimate. And then again, we're looking at trying to work with that business and that consumer to resolve those complaints. I hope that answers the question with what I know about it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next question is, like, people are asking, like, you three, like, if it's important to let people know that there are only little, like, vetting for online ads because people find scamming information on Google or Meta. Can you just explain more?
I would just, one thing I'll say, and then I'll let the other two go, is I didn't mention this earlier. I talked about social media ads, you know, leading to online shopping scams and so forth. I didn't talk about Google, but it is something we need to alert people to, is you can Google and end up on a scam web, you know, a scam ad or a website. So that is something we do need to let people know. Just because you Google it doesn't mean you're going to end up on the legitimate website. There's a lot of leading to some of those scams, and I should have mentioned that earlier. So I guess that's one thing I would just call out. It is important for people to know that just because they find it on a social media platform or they Google it, that it doesn't mean it's legitimate. They need to do something else to check it out and verify.
Yeah, just to add,
Absolutely.
sorry, Andrew,
Please.
I'll be quick, I promise. The thought was, right, if we put in the friction of paying for ads, that criminals wouldn't pay for ads, right? But I mean, this is $1 trillion biz, right? The scamming business, so they have the money to buy and purchase some of these ads. So with that, yeah, everything Mel said, 100%, and I'm sure everything Andrew is about to say is going to be fabulous as well. Okay, go.
It's only fabulous because it's exactly as you said. Just agreeing that they can pay to place ads. They can be the first things you see when you Google search. Maybe you're not even Google searching the company. Maybe you're searching the type of job, and it could still pop up. So it's just a matter of just being very, very aware when you click on any website link. And as I think, Mel, you mentioned earlier, websites can look very legitimate these days and be not legitimate. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah, thank you. So make sure you check before you click any website, like you Google and the social media, they cannot make sure their ads are like everything they claim is true. And then I think we're running out of time. Nelson?
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you, speakers, for all that wonderful information and for bearing with us as we went through these questions. Thank you also for letting the audience, all your slides have information on how they can reach you. So if they have questions later, they'll be able to contact you. So thank you very much for that. Audience, I don't know about you, but I learned so many things today that I'm ready to add things to what I'm already doing when I go out and talk to the community. All of you provided me with information I can use in upcoming workshops. So, and I'm sure the audience feels the same. I just want to briefly say that, remind everyone, we are also a nonprofit, and if you would like to make any kind of contribution to us, you are welcome to do so on our website, by mail. We have a QR code. Again, you'll get these next week. And also, you can support our work by subscribing to our YouTube channel, following us on social media. Now, just one more thank you to Ally, Mel, and Andrew. Thanks for being on. Audience, you've been great. Please stand by for a survey right after this, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.